Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week. It is time for some more One Hub racing. Today we arrive at Canada for the penultimate round of this season 22 in One Hub Racing's P2 tier. I am your race commentator, More Games, and joined alongside me, as always, is Tom Carnes. And are you looking forward to today's penultimate round of the season?
Yes, absolutely, More. Here we are across the Atlantic over to the Notre Dame, as it's known as here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, named after the six-time Formula One race winner Gilles Villeneuve, who, of course, we lost 41 years ago. It will be this year, but we are here for some One Hub racing action here in Montreal, the penultimate round of the championship, where the title could be wrapped up by Delta Hunter in the Red Bull. One championship had been clinched last week at Paul Ricard, thanks to Red Bull's 1-2 finish, with Axel coming out on top ahead of his championship rival. So that's one championship in the bag for the Austrian outfit. Can they make it two with Delta Hunter clinching it today, or can Axel take it down to the wire at Silverstone in 7 days' time? We've got drivers out on circuit already, including Axel, who will be absolutely determined to get the best score possible. If he does that, the championship will go to the last race next week, and he'll need every point that he can get and hope his teammate doesn't quite score so many. There are a few other drivers in mathematical contention, but realistically, it's between the two Red Bull drivers. All Delta Hunter would need to do in order for him to wrap up the championship is to to win the race, I should say, regardless of where anyone else finishes. That will most certainly guarantee him it, with one race to spare. But we do have a battle for second, third, fourth, and fifth in the championship as well, with Axel leading Lukey ahead of Colonel Mason, with Speakai waiting in the wings.
Yeah, like you mentioned, if Delta Hunter wins the race today, he will be taking home this championship. So Axel starting his first lap now, and he wants to get the best result possible today and make sure that he beats Delta Hunter as he now comes out of turn number 2 to begin his first lap of the session. Plenty of chicanes at this Canadian circuit as we find ourselves at the first one of the circuit, followed swiftly by a second one as we head into turn number 6 and 7. You can see actually Jason has retired from the session. I think that's in the pit lane, so he must have an engine grid penalty. So he will be starting from the back of the grid for today's Grand Prix. But Axel now coming into the final sector of the lap time, which begins with this very tricky hairpin. Try to stay as tight as possible to that inside line, and then open up the steering as much as you possibly can and get as close to that wall, just like Axel did. Now down the long back straight with the DRS wide open, which brings us to the final chicane of the lap. It's very easy to make mistakes coming through here, but Axel taking that very, very nicely, getting a good exit out of that final turn across the line. The banker time of his session is going to be a 1 minute 10.9 second lap time. So Axel putting a decent lap time onto the board to begin his session, but Delta Hunter following closely behind. He is now heading up to the final chicane now, and he will be ending off his first lap time. And let's see how do the two Red Bulls stack up against each other. Looks like Delta Hunter might be just about faster as he sets a 1 minute 10.6 seconds. So the banker times have come in. The two Red Bulls are the first drivers to set lap times in this session, and Delta Hunter is 0.3 faster than his teammate and his championship rival. They've already won the constructors together, but the main focus for these final two rounds is going to be the drivers championship. So Delta Hunter coming out strong with a 1 minute 10.6 second, and well, before coming into this round, he did actually mention in a pre-race interview that he thinks Canada is one of the most tricky circuits on the entire calendar. So to come out with a lap time like that, it's pretty decent, and a 0.3 margin to his teammate. I'm sure he'll be happy with that initial banker time, but plenty of time left in the session to improve upon that.
Yep, so Delta Hunter fastest with a 1 minute 10.6, 0.3 faster, which is a very big gap on a track like this in Montreal. You've just seen J-Luke go over the line on the mediums as well, so he's obviously got some mileage in and an understanding of as to how this track works. So his liking, I don't know what his setup is exactly like, but what I will say is this track is 70% full throttle. So engine power is going to be so key here, hence why Jason has decided to start from the back of the grid as he has an engine grid drop. So it's anyone's game so far, but we are expecting one of the Red Bulls to end this session the quickest. It's just a matter of who between the two, but the race will be a different story. And we've got another driver retiring from the session. I think that's Evil Dragon, who's been in the pits in the Mercedes, so he could well be another one taking a grid drop. So we've got a bundle of time to go, so there's plenty of time to change everything. We've got Colonel Mason, who's on track in the Alfa Romeo as he comes into Sector 2. In Sector 2 alone, looking at it, is a 22.4 in that sector alone. It's his personal best, but not purple, so we are not expecting him to go fastest here, but he may split the two Red Bulls as he crosses over the line to complete the lap he is currently about to produce. So into the last chicane. We've seen a lot of drivers get it wrong there over the years, either in real life or in league racing. He goes up to third place, so that's a nice start to his qualifying session for Colin R. Mason. He needs the strongest he can put in to keep his slim hopes of the championship alive. Can he do that here in Canada and get a race victory? It'd be a very ideal scenario. He needs to win, really, to maximise his hopes. Sposis has invalidated his lap time, so he won't be setting a lap on this occasion. Kamte Mum is heading over the line now, but it won't be the quickest. It's the 7th fastest time out of all the drivers who have set a lap of any sort. And he's got some work to do from there. Kamte Mum, who goes into this round, currently 9th in the championship. He's finished every single race so far this season. The best result he had achieved was a 4th place finish at the Chinese Grand Prix at the opening round in Shanghai. And he's done certainly a lot better than his Mercedes teammate Evil Dragon, who has failed to finish from 4 races this year, including a non-start a few rounds ago. So Kamte said the better of the two Mercedes drivers. Just looking to see who else is on the lap. Also, Casper is on the lap, so I'll take it back to you, Mort, and you can take us on the tour of this brilliant historical Montreal circuit.
Yeah, you can see Casper now coming into turn 6 and 7. Like I mentioned before, you get very familiar with the chicanes at this circuit. 3 chicanes in total, and they make up a very tricky circuit, but also has plenty of overtaking opportunities, surprisingly. 3 DRS zones at this Canadian circuit. And you see Casper out of turn number 9 there, spinning the rear wheels, losing the back end, and he is smashed right into the wall. Luckily, did not lose a tyre because of that, but he has lost his front wing, and he is going to have to abandon this lap time, come back to the pit lane, and get that repaired. Meanwhile, the sister team of Red Bull have Axlock currently out on a lap time. He's looking to improve upon that 1:10.9. Currently, the 2 Red Bulls, the only drivers to get into 1 minute 10 seconds. Axlock does improve on his time, but does not beat Delta Hunter's banker time of a 1:10.6. And as this session now progresses, it looks like the circuit is getting darker and darker and darker. So possibly a threat of rain in this session. And only 10 drivers have set lap times in this session, with obviously Specialist struggling a little bit. Currently 2.8, sorry, doing my maths wrong there, 2.6 seconds off of the pace. So he's going to definitely want to get a lap time in nice and quickly. And you can actually see, I've just noticed this now, he's on 4 lap old soft compound tires, so maybe just trying to get in some practice laps in this session. Maybe he didn't have enough time earlier to do his own practice session, so he's just trying to get some laps onto the board. Meanwhile, the rest of the drivers, you can see Ellery Tristan actually going out on a lap. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's meant to be taking a grid penalty today. I'm just going to confirm that, so I'm not wrong about that. But or no, it's Ellery Smitty, my mistake. Ellery Smitty was meant to be taking a grid penalty today, but sadly could not make it to the session. So it's just going to be Jason and Evil Dragon on the final row of the grid. But you can see there's a lot of drivers who haven't set lap times. Ellery, Tristan, the two not Red Bulls, the AlphaTauris, and the two McLarens, all yet to set lap times in this session. So they really need to get out there and get that initial banker time onto the board, because it's absolutely crucial to get a decent lap time to compare yourself against for the rest of the session. As we see Gazaman jump up to P3 with a 1 minute 10.9, a great lap there from Gazaman, puts him in the top 3 and ahead of the likes of Colin Mason and Waitsy. So and it looks like the other Aston Martin of Ellery, Tristan, has put in a good time of a 1:10.9. We rode on board briefly with him, and he did lose the rear end slightly on the exit of turn number 8, so plenty of time to find in that lap, which is very promising. Delta Hunter now is coming out of turn 10 and currently 2/10 up coming out of the middle sector, so he's on for a big improvement here as we head down the back straight with the DRS wide open, getting up to 340 kilometers an hour, and then heading into the final chicane of turn 13 and 14. Delta Hunter rounding off his lap time, and it is going to be a 1 minute 10.2 second lap time, so 5/10 quicker than his Red Bull counterpart of Axlock. So Delta Hunter is doing an amazing job in this session. And I've just noticed Axlock has gone out on an out lap, but he's on 1 lap old soft compound tires, so maybe trying to save a set of softs for the race itself, as the softs are definitely a decent tire at this Canadian circuit.
Well, Delta Hunter's gap is huge, actually, so I can understand maybe why he's saving a set of soft tyres for the race to maintain track position, or he's probably preempting an early safety car, which is very often the case. You get a safety car here in Montreal with the walls that are not far away from catching you should you make a mistake. We did see Tristan run wide through turn 9, which had just seen Futile Ride Dog go through, but Tristan was still able to put his car up there in 3rd place, so I'd expect there's more lap time on the table than what we've already seen from the Aston Martin driver so far. As Casper is out on a lap now, I hope that he has not made the same mistake as before. It doesn't look like he has done in the AlphaTauri as he goes through the DRS zone on this back straight. There are 3 DRS zones, one on the back straight before turns 12 and 13, one on the pit straight, and one in between turns 7 and 8. As Casper is about to cross over the line for his first lap time of the session, he's in need of a good result here, because the last few rounds for Casper, he's just been well off it in comparison to what we saw from him earlier on in the season. If you remember, he took a victory at the 3rd round of the championship in Japan, and pretty much since the Monza race where we had the sprint and the race where he finished 2nd, he's been off the boil, hasn't he? So Bahrain, he didn't have a good time of it. He crashed out in Singapore. He got a decent 5th place finish in round 7, which was at Spa, and last week was an absolute nightmare for him, coming home in 19th and getting a fastest lap. So yeah, he's in desperate need of a good result. 6th place in the championship is well and truly out of the title hunt. They'll want to try and still get a good result in these last 2 races to maybe finish in the top 5, or perhaps in the top 3, because you do get a championship trophy. I say a championship trophy. If you finish in the top 3 in the Drivers' Championship, you are given a trophy by One Hub Racing, if I remember correctly, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite the reward if you finish in the top 3 in the championship here in One Hub Racing. Obviously, you have to pay to enter, so the rewards are fairly decent if you do well in the championship. And quite a few drivers are doing well, as the likes of Delta Hunter and Axlock, who've won the team's championship and battling it out for that 1st place trophy. But as this session now progresses and we're getting closer and closer to those final lap times, we're seeing a bit of a change in the top 5. You can see Delta Hunter still on provisional pole position by a decent 2/10 margin over Colin Mason, who has now promoted himself into P2. Obviously the man who got pole position last time out at France. He's going to want to try and carry that qualifying momentum and hopefully get a better result in the race too. We currently have Lukey on the 2nd row of the grid alongside Axlock in P4, who went out on that old set of soft compound tires. Sadly was not able to improve upon his 1 minute 10.7, but yeah, you can see at the start of the session it was only the top 2 who were onto the 1 minute 10 second lap times. Now it is the top 6, and Delta Hunter looking very dangerous and possibly going to get a 1 minute 9 second lap time in this session. So He's doing absolutely phenomenal job so far, showing his championship leading pace, and it is going to be a battle for pole position most likely between the top 4, with Axok obviously hasn't used a fresh set of soft compound tires for the last 10 minutes, so he's holding it all for the final lap time of his session. But we currently see Red Dragon Racing Waitsy coming across the line to begin what will be his final lap time of the session. So let's ride on board with the Williams driver. You can see into turn 1, just about hitting that apex, as Ellery Tristan actually gets disqualified from the session for blocking the pit exit. So I think he might have locked up, gone straight on, and that counted as him blocking the exit, or maybe was slowing down to let Waitsy through. I'm not too sure, but the man who was P5 in this session now falls all the way to the back of the grid. So yeah, disappointing to see that, but obviously making those little mistakes can give you those big consequences like that. So Ellery Tristan, who was looking extremely competitive in the early stages of this qualifying session, will now be starting at the back of the grid behind the two runners of obviously Jason and Evo Dragon, who both have grid penalties. Meanwhile, Waitsy is coming out of turn number 10 and getting ready to finish his lap time with 1.5 minutes left to go in the session. A couple of drivers still in the pit lane, but they are now getting themselves out and trying to set those fastest lap times when the track evolution is at its best. Waitsy now through the final chicane. You can see cutting turn 13 so much. He took a very good line through there, and across the line it shows because he goes to P4 with a 1 minute 10.6. A great lap time from the Williams driver, and that puts him in a great position in this qualifying session, just a couple of 100ths behind his teammate. But obviously the top 5 bar Waitsy are yet to set their final lap times, so I'm sure they are going to be absolutely rapid in these final few laps now. J-Luke, who's currently in P7, using all of his ERS down this back straight, wants to get into those 1 minute 10-second lap times, and as he heads out of turn number 14, not the greatest exit from J-Luke, but across the line he is just about going to get into the 1 minute 10 seconds as he sets a 1:10.9, which puts him just ahead of the Aston Martin of Gazman. But let's ride on board with Delta Hunter for his final lap time, the man who's looking to secure pole position for today's Grand Prix, and it looks like he might not have a lot of competition because neither Colin R. Mason nor Lukey have actually come out of the pit lane, so they're trying to conserve a set of soft compound tires for the race. Delta Hunter through the first sector to 23 1,000ths up on his time, as Waitsy will not be getting another lap in this session. Delta Hunter now down this DRS straight as we head into turn number 8 and 9, and you can see a very smooth line through there, making sure to take it to push as hard as he can, but also take it a little bit cautiously, and it does show because he is 5 100ths down on his time, so not improving coming out of the middle sector. But can he find something now in this final chicane? There's so much time to be found if you cut it just right and get your perfect line through this final chicane. So let's see Delta Hunter, and he's absolutely barreling down this straight into the final chicane. You can see he tried to cut it, but he's cut it just that little bit too much. He has invalidated his lap time of what would have been a 1:10.2, so not much of an improvement to be found even after invalidating his lap time. But Axok now comes through the final chicane, a little bit of oversteer on the exit turn number 14, but can he compete against his teammate? No, he can't, just about missing out on that pole position by 1/10 of a second. But it looks like the Constructors Champions of Red Bull have locked out the front row of the grid for today's great Canadian Grand Prix, and only 1/10 between the two championship contenders. I think we're in for a very, very close 35 laps at this circuit.
Most certainly so. Axok really needed a strong lap in there because he was down in 5th place behind Colin Mason, Lukey and Waitsy, who produced quality laps before he did, but Axok found the time that he needed to put himself back onto the front row next to his teammate to have a shot of keeping his title hopes alive, and Red Bull showing why they are the Constructors Champions of the P2 tier in One Hub Racing. So we've got a number of drivers starting from the back of the grid. I have to feel for Tristan because he was up there in 5th place. By the end of the session, I think it would have ended up being either 7th or 8th. So that's hard luck there on Tristan. It's left himself with all to do in the race to salvage a strong result. But it's Delta Hunter who's on pole position for the Canadian Grand Prix ahead of his teammate Axock alongside. And we've got Colin R. Mason and Lukey on row 2 with Waitsy and Casper on row 3, followed by J. Luke and Gazaman on the 4th row, with Cam K. Mum and P1 Peru rounding out the top 10. Futile and Oz are next in 11th and 12th ahead of Jordan and Jamie Met. Speakai 15th, well below expectations. I wonder if he's saving sets of tyres for the race coming up. Specialists alongside on row 8, and we've got Jason and Evil Dragon, who we expect are taking grid drops because they've not set a lap time, and Tristan at the back following his disqualification for blocking the pit lane exits. So, with that being said, and whilst we are waiting for the event to get underway, it's worth mentioning One Hub Racing's sponsors and partners. Now, if you just bear me one moment whilst I do get that up, I think we're going to be in for a banger of a race. There will be a formation lap for your information. So the driver will get an opportunity to see what tyres each of the drivers will be starting the race on. I'm just trying to find the correct document where the sponsors and partners are more, but feel free to fill me in whilst I do do search for that.
Well, yeah, heading into this Canadian Grand Prix, I think the strategy is going to be extremely interesting at this circuit because all tyres are pretty much viable at this track. You have the softs, the mediums, and the hards. The softs very fast and do actually last a decent amount of laps since the lap time is quite short. The mediums are the perfect tyre for consistency, and then the hard tyres can do extremely long stints. So I think with safety cars, the strategy is going to be very, very interesting. With I think we're going to see all three of those tyres being used at today's Grand Prix. So I think the strategy is going to be quite spicy, as it usually is in One Hub Racing with our two-stop rule.
So, the sponsors of One Hub Racing, we begin with Next Level Racing, who sponsor the league by providing its prizes. Pure Sim Gear, who sponsor the league by providing a new product that's not been released yet to the driver with the most podiums. Gamergoo, who sponsor the league by providing Gamergoo samples to the trophy winners. And Asetek Sim Sports, who sponsor the league by providing a multitude of prizes with different ways to win them. Now, there are two ways in which you can win them. Is the driver with the most fastest laps will win a set of Forte pedals, and the driver with the shortest combined qualifying time wins a set of Forte pedals and boots. On to our partners, Vespertine, who partner One Hub Racing with the official apparel. ERT, who sponsor the league with the Going Gets Tough Award and league trophies. And last but not least, SimGrid, which runs the seasons through their community and platform, where you can have a look to see how your drivers are doing. You can see all the results, all the stand-ins, both drivers and teams in each tier in One Hub Racing. All you need to do is simply search for the league and that specific division as to which your driver is competing in. It's that simple. Do feel free to get involved in the live chat as well in case you do have any questions, and we're welcome to answer them as of when we can do. It'll be a busy race, but we'll do our best to make sure we do answer as many questions as possible. So looking at who is starting on what. So we've got no one starting on the hards, which is no surprise really. I'll tell you who is on the softs. All of the top 5, Delta Hunter, Axock, Colin on Mason, Lukey and Waitsy. Gazman in 8th is also starting on the softs, as is Ols, Jamie Met, Speakai, Jason and Evil Dragon. All the others are starting on the mediums. So we've got 35 laps ahead of us. And can Delta Hunter wrap up the cycle here with a race win? That will guarantee it. There are other permutations as to how he could clinch it, but we'll keep you updated as to whether he will clinch it in terms of how the race is going on, depending on how the drivers are doing. There's a lot of different scenarios as to how the championship is decided, but the most obvious one is if Delta Hunter was to win the race, he will be crowned champion no matter where his rivals finish.
So, a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Axock, who needs to put in a good performance today if he wants to continue this championship battle. And needs to make sure that he pretty much has to win this Grand Prix if he wants to keep his championship hopes alive. That is just how big of a lead that Delta Hunter has over Axock. And you can see actually Delta Hunter lining up on the grid. He's angled his car towards the right, so he will be trying to cover off Axock and get that racing line as they head into turn 1 as quickly as possible. So Yeah, you can see positioning his car very strategically there, and he's going to be hoping for a good race start now, as all the drivers have now lined up on the grid and they are preparing for those 5 red lights to come on. And well, you can see we have 3, 4, 5 red lights. They're gone, and we're away. What kind of start is it for our pole man of Delta Hunter relative to Axoc? It doesn't look like a great one, as he's being jumped by not 1 but 2 drivers as they head into turn 1. It's Lukey who takes the lead after starting P3 in this Grand Prix, and the 2 Red Bulls making contact as they head up the hill through turn number 2. But Delta Hunter has kept his position over Axoc, but Lukey, a great race start, moving from P3 to P1. He's attempting to break the DRS to the drivers behind in an attempt to make an early lead over the rest of the grid. Meanwhile, plenty of battling going on in the midfield. You can see the medium runners struggling up against the soft runner of the likes of Gazaman, who's trying to now overtake Casper, who's just ahead of him in P6. But quite a lot of action there at the top, and a couple switching of positions. Axoc looking to do it again as he tries a little move down the inside there of Delta Hunter, but does not have the braking capability to commit to that move. Meanwhile, Speaky and Cam came on battling it out. Speaky on the soft compounded tires has the most grip. Meanwhile, P1 Peru being overtaken by the soft compound tire runners. The mediums just simply do not have the grip that he needs. But you can see staying relatively calm now after that first lap. Lukey leads the Grand Prix after lap 1. Is now 1.4 seconds out of the rest of the field. Waitsy is defending the outside line on Casper, who's on the medium compound of tire, trying to overtake the Williams driver, and he gets a great exit out of turn number 2 with that outside line. And Casper moves himself up into the top 5 now, but he's just outside of that DRS range, so he's going to have to push nice and hard with the ERS if he wants to catch up to those top 4 drivers, which it looks like he's just about going to do. The DRS has not yet been enabled. It will be enabled on the next lap, so these drivers need to make sure that they are within DRS on the beginning of a lap 3. But as the race goes on, Lukey 1.7 seconds out in the lead. He's showing phenomenal pace here in Canada.
That was so nearly both Red Bull drivers out of the race after a couple of turns, because Axoc and Delta are almost tangled as they got the power down coming out of turn 2, but thankfully they both kept pointing the right way. And Lukey, I mean, I have to say, that's probably the best start I have seen from anyone this season in terms of the launch off the line and how quickly he got into the lead before that short run down to turn 1. But his lead is over a second anyway, so he's out of that DRS territory, and now he can start bridging out a gap before he comes in for his first pit stop. And I will remind you all that there is a mandatory 2-stop rule in One Hub Racing. In terms of what tyres to be on, well, that's down to the drivers, but they must make at least 2 pit stops in a Grand Prix, otherwise it will be a disqualification. As watch Futsal make contact with the Alpine of J-League, who gets past, and now we've got the Ferrari of Jason fighting his way through the field beautifully there. Oh, he's made contact though, and Jason nearly putting his teammate Speaky into the barrier at turn 4. They both keep going, but that was so nearly curtains for the Maranello squad as Jason looks to fight back with B1 Peru, but they make contact, and Jason needs to be very careful. And there's a front wing gone, and Tristan's out in the Aston Martin. He hit the back of what looked like Jordan in the AlphaTauri. Jamie Met has also been in the wars as well, and we've got our first stoppage, well, I say stoppage, we've got our first interruption of the race. It's the virtual safety car, so it's not the full safety car, it's a virtual safety car where all the drivers have to adhere to a delta until either the safety car is deployed or when we go green flag racing again. But what horrid lot there for Tristan, who lost his 7th or 8th position on the grid because of the blockage at the end of the pit lane, and his race has only lasted just over a lap. We've got pit stops already, so this is a really important time in the race here, more, because those that started on the soft compound tyres are able to come in and get those done and out of the way, and they're going to go onto the mediums. Now, Axoc has decided to stay out, which is totally understandable. He's got to try something different to what his teammate is doing, otherwise he's going to be either stuck behind him for so long and not able to make the most out of the strategy that he would be able to do in comparison to his teammate. If he stays out on the softs, he'll be able to stretch out his stint more, and possibly when he goes onto the medium compound for his second stint, if that's what he decides to do, he can maybe stretch out that medium stint far enough to think he may decide to go onto the softs later, whereas his teammate will be reluctant to go onto another set of mediums, if not hards.
Yeah, and obviously, oh, you can see JB Met there has got a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car, so was just about under his delta, and he has paid the ultimate price now. A drive-through penalty as Futile, Rydog, and Kamke are battling out for what is now a podium position on track at least, but yeah, strategy-wise, Axok thinking that he should stay out there, didn't want to double stack with his teammate, and like he said, wants to try something a little bit different because he really has to if he wants to beat Delta Hunter in this race. Meanwhile, we're seeing the battle continue for the top three. Kamke had a look to the inside of the final chicane, but thinking it's probably not the best idea to make a dive into that particular turn, although he's using plenty of his ERS because he wants to make the move around the outside at turn number 1. You can see braking as late as possible, and then it turns to the inside line for this turn number 2. Futile is going to try and get that better exit, but he has now lost the position to Kamke Mom and can't fight back as they head into turn number 3 and 4. So Kamke is up into P3. Meanwhile, we have yellow flags. That is for the I think that was the Ferrari of Jason making a mistake out of the final chicane there, and is now down in P16. But yeah, the strategy game starting very early on in this race, and because of those pit stops, Lukey is now 2.5 seconds ahead of Delta Hunter. So Lukey, and that virtual safety car has played perfectly for him because he's now made his first pit stop and is well ahead of Delta Hunter behind, but he's now getting caught up in the traffic of alls as he gets a better exit out of that turn 10, taking the curb on turn 11. Very risky indeed. Thankfully, doesn't lose the cars. Axok now, just a few laps after that virtual safety car, comes into the pit lane for a fresh set of what I think will be medium compound tyres. But Lukey continuing to push on now, and he's got that net race lead, so all he's got to do is just keep focused now and maintain a good pace in the clean air. But he actually is going to catch up to some more medium runners now of his teammate specialist Futile Rydog and obviously Kamke, the Futile Rydog and Kamke, who were obviously battling earlier on. But Lukey could get caught up in this traffic, and it might cost him in this race and allow Delta Hunter to catch back up to him. But Axok now comes out of the pit lane, and he has lost a decent 3 seconds there to his teammate because of that virtual safety car. The only advantage that he has now is that he's got 3 lap fresher medium compound tyres. So he has got the fresher tyres, he's got the better grip, but he's got a gap to make up, and he's also he has to overtake Colin Mason if he wants to get into striking distance of Delta Hunter. So it looks like it's going to be a very difficult race from now on for Axlock.
So Futile up there in 3rd place, doing a respectable job so far, but it is early days. A lot of drivers have pitted already. Specialist up there in 4th, we haven't seen too much of him. Lukey is effectively still the net race leader, so he'll be able to stretch out the margin he can over Delta Hunter, but the problem for Luke is he's going to get caught up in traffic very shortly, so he needs to be very clever with his usage of ERS. He may as well save it for when those drivers ahead of him start to pit in, and they can start picking up his pace a little bit more. So Delta Hunter is a couple of seconds behind. As it stands with the positions as they are, Delta Hunter would wrap up the championship with 1 race to spare, because Axlock is down in 8th place, and the difference between finishing 6th and 8th in a race in 1 hub racing, if I get my maths correct, just trying to remember, I think it's 1 6 and 1 that is 4 as far as I know. It may be 7 or 8 or something like that. I'll quickly find that out for you whilst you have a look at the action more, as Casper continues to lead by 8 seconds over Kamke Mum. So Casper making the most of the clear air ahead of him before he comes in for his first stop.
Yeah, so Casper definitely in a very decent position, but if you think about it, Lukey is now caught up to this train of medium runners who have yet to stop. So Lukey, because of that virtual safety car, is now a pit stop ahead of all of these drivers. So he is going to be miles out in this net lead, and you can see Futile Rydog making a mistake out of the final chicane that has cost both himself and Specialist, and Lukey makes a double overtake now on the pit straight, move himself up into a top 3 position. Speed Key gets himself a 3-second time penalty as he heads through the final chicane, and is now under a bit of pressure from Evil Dragon. But That's a lovely, lovely move there from Lukey, just taking advantage of the error of Futile Rydog there and making up 2 positions because of it. So Lukey, he's now up into P3 now, and he's got even more traffic to deal with. He's only 1.3 seconds behind the Mercedes driver of Camke. Luckily for him though, Camke does not have the DRS of Casper ahead of him, so hopefully Lukey should have an easier time overtaking Camke. And also he's been managing his ERS very well for these past couple of laps. He's on about 50% ERS, and Camke's red light is flashing. That does mean he is under 10% ERS, so Lukey, he's in a very good position to overtake these drivers now. And it's now Delta Hunters trying to try and make some moves, as Specialist had a look up the inside there into that final chicane, but a lot of drivers backing out of that move, don't want to go for a risky move into there. But it is now Delta Hunter's turn to make some moves, but before that, Specialist is trying to overtake Futile Rydog. You can see Futile Rydog braking very, very late there, forcing Specialist off the circuit, but he has gotten up into P4 and ahead of the Hash driver of Futile Rydog, but all of this battling is now holding up. Delta Hunter's Futile Rydog collides with the wall there, and he's now lost that position to Delta Hunters. That makes Delta Hunter's job a little bit easier, and Colin Mason is following through with the Red Bull driver of Delta Hunter, and it's all going off now. These top drivers have to overtake this traffic as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, Futile didn't really need that. You can see he's struggling to turn into turn 8 there, and he's got Axel right behind him, so I wonder if Futile may decide to pit in at the end of this lap as a precaution, because one is taking the mediums a fair bit in this race, although not ideal, but he can't afford to put his car in the barrier and take someone else with him, because that will get him potentially into trouble with the stewards. We've just seen Casper get his first track limits penalty of the race. 3 seconds it is. Now that could, if we get a safety car towards the end of the race, that will hurt him horribly, unless others have the same kind of penalty as he has, which is very much possible on this circuit. Futile Rydog does come in, so I did call it. So he's in now to get that stop done. As we watch a battle going on further behind between Speakai, Evil Dragon Peru and J-Luke. Now this will be for 10th place now, because Futile is in the pits as Evil Dragon looks for a move round the outside into turn 1. Goes in too deep, goes onto that white painted grass on the outside, heading into turn 2. And he's going to lose out horribly here to Peru. He's going to get through on him. So that attempt there from Evil Dragon had backfired him as he drops down a position. So Casper leads, Camke Mom second, Lukey is 3rd place. And he's about to complete a move, I would have thought, on the Mercedes very shortly once he gets the DRS open. On the back straight, Delta Hunter up to 5th place now as J-Luke goes for a spin on the exit of turn 7, and he's pointing, well, he was pointing the wrong way to begin with, he's now pointing the right way, so J-Luke rejoins what will probably be 16th place now, because Jordan's got past him, and J-Luke is circulating round the circuit without a front wing attached to his car, so he'll be in the pits at the end of this lap. More and more drivers are getting track limits penalties now. Lukey's one of them in the Williams, so he's got some work to do from there. Specialist in 4th place, he's got a penalty. Delta Hunter does not. He's in 5th place, trying to get past Specialist. Axlock has got past Colin R. Mason. That's a very important move from Axlock. He's ahead of the Alfa Romeo driver. Next man ahead of him is his rival for the championship. He's got to finish ahead of him to stay in the hunt for the title.
Yeah, it's all heating up all over the grid as 3 drivers losing their front wings there. P1 Peru, Evil Dragon and J-Luke, as Evil Dragon now DNFs on the exit of the final chicane. That can only mean one thing: the safety car is now released. So as soon as Axlock got past the Alfa Romeo of Colin R. Mason and within striking distance of his teammate, the safety car is now released. So these drivers have to decide, what are they going to do? Are they going to come into the pit lane for the hard compounded tyre, or are they going to come out in anticipation for another safety car? It's going to be extremely interesting to see how this plays out. Casper obviously coming into the pit lane to make his very first stop of this Grand Prix. Lukey, though, this is going to be a big question. He's going to lose his lead that he has over Delta Hunter, so is it worth boxing? The answer is yes. Lukey comes into the pit lane. We'll have to see whether or not that is for the hard compound of tyre. Once again, Axlock cannot box for fresh tyres, because he does not want to double stack with his teammate of Delta Hunter, so he is once again staying out under safety car conditions. So This strategy could work out for him though, because he has got those fresher medium compound tires. So these medium tires still have a good 10 laps or so left in them, maybe a little bit less. Possibly even a little bit more, actually. I think maybe 15 laps. So he's got plenty of life left in these medium compound tyres, which means if another safety car does come out, he will be in a prime position, because he will be able to go on to another set of mediums, and they will be fresher and softer than the likes of Delta Hunter. So Axlock obviously wasn't able to box because of his teammate, but it could possibly turn out to be an advantage to the second Red Bull driver. But Casper now, obviously along with Cam K coming into the pit lane for fresh tyres. They've only made one stop so far in this race, so the likes of Casper, Waitsy, Cam K, Jason, Specialist and Futile Rydog have all made one stop. Everyone else has made two stops and is looking to possibly go to the end of the race. You can see Lukey on the hard seat wants to get to the end, along with Delta Hunter wants to get to the end, and Connor Mason. So those top three guys have all gone for the exact same strategy, go onto those hard compounded tyres. But how do you see this strategy conflict playing out between the hard runners and obviously Axlock, and even the fresh medium runners who have only made one stop in this race?
Well, we've got a completely different race now, and what's important for Axlock was, one, he didn't box in at the same time as his teammate did, because otherwise he would have been stacking up behind, as you've already mentioned. And what's also more crucial, number two, is he's got track position. He's in the lead of the race now, but he's still yet to make one more pit stop. And I think the good news for Axlock is he can stretch out this stint as far enough as he can before he decides to come in again. He may even think of another safety car after this one's gone back in again, in case we have another incident in like 5 or 6 laps after the restart. We've got Specialist and Speakai coming into the pits also to get onto the hard compound tyres, so they will go to the end of the race, you'd have thought. But they may decide to pit in again for the soft compound to try and get the benefit from those tyres over the hard tyres, of which they're potentially going to do about 23 or 24 laps now, which is a long way on these hard tyres. On a track like this, on the race distance that we have, it is 50% race distance. So if it's like 23 or 24, that's like 46 and 48 laps in real life Formula 1, which is a long stint on the hard compound. But Axlock is in the lead then. Delta Hunter is in 6th place, but he does not have a time penalty to his name at the present moment. Axlock doesn't either, but Axlock is going to be under threat from Casper. He'll be on fresher tyres than he is. So Axlock has got to really get the hammer down and start pulling it away. I mean, not all the field are close up to each other yet, so we will get one more lap onto the safety car. And it gives me an opportunity, actually, to not only discuss about the rivalry between Delta Hunter and Axlock, but also a battle for possibly second place in the championship, but that involves Colin Mason and Lukey. Now, we had a question thrown out to them, and there was, the question was, just a single point separates you guys heading into, oh well, Canada, sorry, I was looking at the wrong rounds, my apologies. But you have to say the championship battle for second place in the championship is very much up for grabs really now, isn't it? Now, you'd have thought Lukey would run away with it here, ahead of Colin Mason, but he has a time penalty to his name, whereas Colin Mason does not so. As Jason comes into the pits, he's decided to sacrifice the track position, or the position he was in, to go onto a set of the medium compounds, and he should rejoin ahead of Jamie Met, who's just catching up to the back of the Crocodile as they make their way through turns 3 and 4. So we will get back on the way once the safety car comes in at the end of this lap. So it's Axlock who leads ahead of Casper, who's up to second place still. He's made one pit stop already, as has Axlock. Although Casper actually, I think, has made 2 stops, hasn't he? No, he has only made 1 stop. We've still got a number of drivers only pitted once in this race. There are Axlock, Casper, Waitsy, Cam K Mum, and Futile. All the others have pitted twice in this race, and they can go to the end without stopping again if they want to. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if we may see a few more drivers heading for the pits for the soft compound before this race is over.
Yeah, definitely, especially the likes of Axlock, who's going to be trying to extend this stint for as long as possible. And yeah, like I said, if there's another safety car, I think those hard runners are definitely going to be inclined to go on to either another set of mediums or maybe even softs if it's late enough in the Grand Prix. But the safety car is now in this lap, and Axlock leads us for this safety car restart. The man who's P2 in the championship and got it all to play for at this Canadian Grand Prix needs to get a good restart relative to the medium medium runner of Casper, who's on 6 lap fresher tyres, and he could be a headache for Axoc, but we'll have to see how he does. He needs to take advantage of this clean air track position and medium compound tyres relative to Delta Hunter, who's in the midfield and on the hard compound tyres. So Axoc is going to be pushing to the absolute maximum now for these next couple of laps, and as he heads into the final chicane, he is going to be going for the safety car restart, leaving it very late here, and this could definitely catch out Casper, but as they get closer and closer to the line, when is Axoc going to go? And it looks like the answer is now. So Casper getting slightly caught out there, and this could allow the likes of Luki to overtake his teammate into turn 1. You can see Waitsy braking so late there to try and defend this top 3 position, but his teammate on the hard compounded tyre, slightly better grip because they are so fresh. And Delta Hunter has actually lost a position to Colin R. Mason, and he is now down into P7 behind the Alfa Romeo. So he has lost that position. That is not good at all. He needs to be gaining as many positions as possible and really be up there challenging with the likes of Luki to try and win this Grand Prix if he wants to close up the championship. Well, pretty much wrap up the championship. But with Luki being on the higher compound tyres, he's struggling to keep up with the top 2. He's 1.2 seconds behind the top 2. And you can see Camke overtaking Waitsy, who's gone into the wall there. Thankfully, Camke and Waitsy both getting out of that cleanly. And Camke now moves up into the top 4. Connor Mason in P6. It seems like there's a big deficit between the hard compound tyres and the medium compound tyres. So the mediums are definitely a lot quicker, but a mistake from Waitsy means Colin Mason is going to get that better exit coming out of the final chicane, and he moves up into the top 5, and he's got 0 seconds of time penalties to his name. He's currently the lead runner of all the drivers who've done 2 pit stops and have 0 seconds of time penalties. So Colin Mason is in an absolutely lovely position in this race, but as Luki cannot catch up to the top 2, that's definitely going to help out Axoc's race, because he's going to be able to pull away from all of the hard tyre runners.
So got the perfect restart, I have to say. He gets it so late. It didn't surprise me because he was on more worn tyres, and Casper would have been able to get a toe on him on that pit straight. So it was a very good restart for Axoc. Delta Hunter lost a position on the restart to Waitsy, I believe. So he's got some work to do, and he's about to get on with it here into the hairpin. Up the inside, the 2 bang wheels a little bit, but nothing more than that. But Waitsy has the upper hand on the exit of the hairpin and keeps hold of his 6th position. Now Delta Hunter will get into the 6th stream, round the outside, and I think we're going to be seeing a change of position here on track. Delta Hunter goes through up into P6, so it's a nice move there from Delta Hunter. He's aiming to get the championship wrapped up today with a race victory. As it stands, he would not be world champion even if he was to finish 2nd behind his teammate. The points gap will be reduced to still be within a mathematical certainty, or below the mathematical certainty, if you know where I'm coming from. It'll be a very slim hope for Axel to still win the championship, but he'll still keep the title race going into the last race. Casper right on the tail of Axel. He'll have DRS behind him on this straight. It's a short straight anyway, and I doubt he will make a lunge up the inside. It'll be very daft for him to do that, so he'll bide his time for another opportunity. We had a few drivers ducking into the pits at the end of the lap before last, as a lot of them had damage on that first lap of the restart. They were Jordan, Olsen specialist, so they've left themselves with a lot to do. They'll be hoping for another safety car before this race is over to have any hope of finishing in the points. So Casper, will he decide to go for it here? He's not quite using his ERS on this back straight. He won't want to waste any in case he needs any for later. As he closes up behind, he's easing off the throttle before they get to the last turn. So I think Casper is actually happy to just sit behind Axoc for now and wait for the opportunity to come as it does. He may even decide to wait until Axoc ducks into the pits before he starts pushing. But the problem for Casper is he's on a time penalty, unlike Axoc. So he could do with getting past him and pulling away from him.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, like you said, Casper could definitely be going for a strategy like that, especially because he has 3 seconds of time penalties. So when Axock comes into the pit lane, Casper could definitely take that approach of trying to push as hard as possible, and it could definitely work out. Lukey is on those hard compound tires, so he's going to be a lot quicker than the Williams driver, and but obviously the Williams of Lukey is now almost caught up to the DRS of the top two. Meanwhile, Futile and Waitsy going side by side through turn number 8 and 9. And Futile has got himself up into P7. But Waitsy has now lost 3 positions because of that. Although he tries to fight back against Jason through the turn 10 hairpin. And it's all going off here because Gazaman has now gained 2 positions because of that conflict. And now Jason gets ahead of Futile. So, and the Williams is now trying to make a double move here down this back straight. It could be 3 wide into this final chicane, but no, Jason looks to the outside. He has to cut the second part of the chicane, and he hits into the wall and retires from the session. So Jason is now out of the session, and the full course safety car has been released once again. So that was quite the battle there, elbows out between all of the drivers, but Jason has ended up in the wall and the safety car once again released, and this has played out absolutely perfectly for Axock. He's extended this medium stint, and it's played perfectly for him because he can now come into the pit lane and box for the medium compound tires, and if he does that, he's going to be on better tyres than the rest of the grid, or Delta Hunter is going to come in for the mediums and Axock is going to get that track position. So Axock in a prime position now to keep this championship battle alive, but he has still got plenty of work to do. Even if he is going to get the advantage, there is still 16 laps to go in this Grand Prix, and so much can happen in that space of time. You can see we're only on lap 19 of 35, and already there's been so many switching up positions. But Axock now into the pit lane along with Casper, who did a short stint on the medium, Suzuki, and pretty much everyone comes into the pit lane. But now Delta Hunter is that second Red Bull driver, and he gets to feel that treatment of not being the leading Red Bull. He has to stay out, but on the hard compound tires. So even if Axock was that second Red Bull driver for 2 of the safety cars, Delta Hunter has been that second driver for when it matters most. He has to stay out on the hard compounded tyre, and that is going to cost him so much time. It's going to put him on a terrible strategy, and he is not looking good for the rest of this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Axock in P3, he's only got 1 car between himself and Delta Hunter, 8 lap fresher tyres and the softer compounded tyres. It's looking very good for Axock in this Grand Prix.
It's worked out perfectly, I think, for Axock with the timing of the safety car. He's now on another set of mediums, which should take him to the end of the race. So he's going to be on better tyres on the restart, so he'll need to dispose of Speakai straight away so he can get onto the rear of his Red Bull teammate. What he cannot afford is getting into a tangle with anyone on the restart, otherwise that's his championship finish, really. For Casper, he's still in the race for a podium, most definitely, in the 4th place on track. Colin R. Mason also on course for a podium with the penalties potentially being applied. He just needs to keep his car out of trouble once the race gets going again. It's also worked out perfectly for the likes of Jamie Met, Ols and Specialist, who had to pit on the first lap after the restart, the previous restart, and they'll have another shot at it again for when we get going again here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Hosted its first race in 1978 as well, of which that was won by the late Gilles Villeneuve, hence why the circuit is named after him. And of course, Jacques Villeneuve competed many times on this circuit in Formula 1, although he didn't have the best of luck on this track. In 10 attempts, I think he only finished about 3 of them or something like that. His best finish being a 2nd place finish in his first attempt for Williams in 1996. But this is a different ball game now in Formula 1 with the 1.6 litre V6 turbocharged hybrids. I nearly said normal aspirated. I'm going too far back here. It's the turbocharged hybrids, is what I was meant to say. But yeah, Delta Hunter is in control of the situation here. He should pull away as brilliantly as what his teammate has done. If he's learned from what his teammate did earlier, he'll probably do the same, but he needs to try and catch Speedguy napping so that Axock can be held up behind him, which will give Delta Hunter a bit of a buffer for when the DRS gets enabled after the first couple of laps of the restart.
Yeah, definitely. But the only problem with Delta Hunter now is 9-lap old hard compound tires. You can see him weaving on every single straight. He's trying his very, very best to keep the temperature in these hard compound tires, which is it's definitely very difficult to do, especially on this game now, where the tires usually all three tire compounds require a lot of work to get temperature into them, but the hard compound tires especially take a lot of weaving and spinning of the rear wheels to actually get that temperature. So definitely possibly expect some wheel spin from the likes of Camk, Casper, Speed Key, or Delta Hunter, as they're definitely going to struggle off of this restart. But if Delta Hunter can get a good restart, he'll definitely be in a solid position for the next couple of laps. So you can see the safety car is going to be staying out for one more lap, and that is because the likes of Alls and Specialists have not caught up to the safety car just yet. So safety car remains out for one more lap before it comes into the pit lane. Obviously, this is the second time it's been out, so the driver is getting pretty familiar with being under these safety car conditions. But hopefully we can have a straight shootout for the final 13 laps, although I'm sure Delta Hunter won't be hoping for that, because he wants to make one more stop in this race. He's at a massive disadvantage. We saw on the previous safety car restart what the difference was between the mediums and the hards, and Lukey, who's been showing phenomenal pace for this qualifying session and these last 22 laps, he was struggling to keep up with the likes of Casper and Axok, who are on quite worn medium compound tires. So the deficit is definitely very big, so Axok will be trying his very best to overtake these two as quickly as possible, and if he can do that, he will be in that clear area. He'll be pushing to the maximum on these medium compound tires, and his main competitor will most likely be Colin R. Mason, because he's the only driver without 3 seconds of time penalties, but he's all the way down in P7. So Axok, he's going to use this opportunity and this advantage to the absolute maximum now, and let's see if that's exactly what he can do for the next 13 laps. Delta Hunter will be hoping for a safety car, but focusing on the safety car restart for now as he comes down the back straight, preparing himself on these high compounded tires. You can see putting a lot of work into these tires to try and get that final bit of temperature into them before preparing himself for the safety car restart. Let's see how early or late is he going to go. Did a little bit of a dummy there, and trying to catch out Speed Key into the final chicane though. And where is he going to go? Looks like he's leaving it quite late, just like his teammate did, and you can see he has definitely caught Speed Key napping, and both Axok too. So they both lost quite a bit of time to the leading Red Bull, but Axok on the medium compound tire has a look to the inside, doesn't have the grip just yet. Meanwhile, Lukey is already making moves because he's looking to that inside line through turn number 2 on Casper, and he gets that move done up into the top 4 now, and he's going to be trying to put pressure under the Red Bull, and maybe a little bit too much as he makes contact with the back of Axok, and thankfully, his front wing staying intact there, but we're now seeing Colin R. Mason trying to make up positions with his fresh medium compound tires. He gets past the Mercedes driver of Camk and is now trying to overtake all of these penalty runners to try and get closer and closer to Axok, who has not overtaken in Speed Key yet, and Speed Key is 1.2 seconds behind our race leader, so Axok needs to get a move on. He's got plenty of ERS to try and make this move quickly and efficiently, and this could be the prime overtaking position now as he heads out of turn number 10, gets a beautiful exit relative to the Ferrari driver using his ERS and the slipstream, pulls out at the last second to try and overtake the Ferrari driver, and as they head into the final chicane, Axok finds himself in P2 and behind his teammate and championship rival. So pushing on now, 1.3 seconds is the gap, and he's got to close that now, and he's got to close it very quickly, because the longer this race goes on, the faster Delta Hunter's tires get relative to the mediums, because obviously the hards wear at a lot slower rate. So Axok needs to make this advantage last as quickly as possible relative to Delta Hunter, and he's already gotten himself within that 9/10 gap.
Yeah, so Axok will be within DRS range. Will he get the rear wing open on this occasion? I don't think he did so, but he will do by the time we get onto the next back straight, which is after the hairpin. So we will expect to see Axok get closer and closer to his teammate. I wonder how Delta Hunter may choose to fight this one. I think he may decide to fight it, but the problem is if he starts fighting with him, that's going to allow the pack behind to close in on these two. He does not want those completely swamping him for when they start pouncing on him should Delta Hunter and Axlock fight with each other. Lukey's got past Speakai now, so Lukey back up into third place. He is carrying that time penalty, remember, so it's vital he gets on with this now. He's got to hope he does not get another safety car, because otherwise the field bunch back up again, and he'll need even more time really to make up the time over the others to make up for that penalty. As we watch Casper make it a move as well. He's had a brilliant race so far as Casper, up there in 4th position now in the AlphaTauri, so he's having a better race of it than in previous rounds. But you know, we've still got some way to go. We've got 11 laps to go. Delta Hunter leads them by half a second over Axlock. Red Bull 1 and 2, as we've seen last week at Paul Ricard. The championship in the teams championship has already been decided in their favour. Now it's going to be a matter of which one of their two, if that's the case, is going to be crowned champion. It's likely between Delta Hunter and Axlock. The question is, which of the two between Axlock and Delta Hunter? So watch Colin Mason go past Speakai up into 5th place. He needed to make that move, and it's worked out brilliantly for him. But we want to go back to the battle for the lead, because Delta Hunter's gone a little bit too deep into turn 10, and that's going to allow Axlock to get better traction coming out of the hairpin, get the DRS open, and pull alongside. Here we go then. DRS open on the back straight. Is Axlock using his ERS? He's not, in fact. He's got less ERS in board than Delta Hunter has. So I think Axlock has decided to be frugal on this occasion and just wait for another opportunity to get by.
And it looks like that opportunity might be now as he heads into turn number 1. He just gets close enough to have a look, but not close enough to commit to a move. So Delta Hunter is doing an amazing job out in front at defending this P1 position. That's exactly what he needs to do. I think we saw a mistake there from one of the drivers. Kamke has fallen all the way down to P14, along with no, I think it was just him losing a lot of positions. I'm not too sure what was happening there. Focusing, obviously, I think it was between himself and Speed Key, possibly having a collision there. But obviously being very focused now on this battle between the two Red Bulls. Axlock once again, as we head into turn 10, 3 separate the top two. He has that little dummy into turn 10, but very, very far back. Don't think he can commit to a move just yet. Took a late apex there, which is exactly what he wants to see, because it's given him a good exit. But Delta Hunter has amazing straight line speed, possibly running some lower wings, and Axlock tries to get close. He looks at this inside line. He is going to go to the inside into the chicane, but that has not helped out his cause whatsoever, because he has now got himself a 3-second time penalty, and that is going to be extremely costly now for these final 8 laps, because even if Axlock can overtake his teammate of Delta Hunter, he's going to have to make up a 3-second gap. So this now means Delta Hunter is in a prime position to wrap up this championship at this very round. If he can just stay within 3 seconds of Axlock, Lukey, Casper, all the top 4 except for him have time penalties, Delta Hunter could be taking home the championship here in Canada at the penultimate round of the season. But 8 laps to go. He himself could get a 3-second time penalty, and obviously the top 5 are all in one big DRS train, with Connor Mason being the most threatening now out of all the drivers. ERT Jordan has made a mistake, which has dropped him all the way down to P14. That's a spin out of turn number 9, and that has been quite costly now, dropping him outside of the points and down to P14. So he now could be overtaken by Jamie Met into turn number 10. Holds his position for now, but I think he's actually completely lost his front wing, and I think that's the second time in this race now where he's lost his front wing, so he's going to have to dive into the pit lane to get that repaired. But now that Axlock has got himself a 3-second time penalty, what kind of approach do you think he's going to take to these final 7 laps?
If he's going to win this race, Axlock, he needs to pass his teammate and pull out a gap on him. That's the best thing that he can do. What he may decide to do, if the safety car was to come out again any time, then he will have to gamble and go onto a set of softs and hope that his teammate that stays out on the hard compound and maybe falling back into the clutches of the field that go past him. But Axlock has to win this race. He needs every point he can get. So Delta Hunter, it's not that he needs to win the race. He needs to finish ahead of his teammate and hope that his other rivals don't score heavily. But Delta Hunter will just want to make sure the championship's wrapped up here tonight, so he's not having to go into next week worrying about the championship at all. So Axel needs to get on with this now. He's got to pass Delta Hunter to keep the championship going. As we come down the back straight, he can't quite do it there at the moment. So Delta Hunter stays in front for now. 7 laps remaining at the end of this lap, as Casper remains in 4th place. Colin Mason in 5th as well. He, on the previous lap to this, he had set the fastest first sector time out of anyone in the Grand Prix so far. So he's on a move as well. As Delta Hunter's holding up the pad, that's going to allow Colin to close in on these top 4 drivers in the Grand Prix so far. As it stands, he'll be finishing in 2nd place. So Axel knows he's got to pass Delta Hunter right now.
And with the laps counting down, it's looking less and less likely that Axel can keep this championship alive. But as they head down the run into turn number 8, Delta Hunter defends his position, and he's doing such a good job at defending this position on 17-lap old hard compound tyres. He is driving an absolutely phenomenal pace, but Axel now, he's going to try and send it as hard as possible into turn number 10. Delta Hunter attempts the switchback move, but it does not work out for him. Axel is in P1, and now Lukey could be trying to take advantage of the situation because Delta Hunter does not have DRS, so Lukey takes the
safety
racing
car
line, and the safety car has now been released, and that's because Speed Key has retired from the session on the exit of turn number 7. So it is going to be extremely interesting. We've got 6 laps to go, and the top 4 have all missed the pit lane, so none of them have the ability to box. Meanwhile, Casper comes into the pit lane. Gazman, Futile, Specialist, they're all coming into the pit lane for this final stint of this penultimate Grand Prix. Every single driver onto that set of soft compound tires that they saved from the previous qualifying session, and it is going to be a 4-lap shootout between all of these drivers on the soft compound tyre, and this might cause complications for the likes of Delta Hunter and Axel. And obviously, Axel has a 3-second time penalty. Delta Hunter and Colin Mason both staying out. So Axel and Lukey are already going to lose a lot of positions, but maybe not because of their time penalty, because if you look at the left side of your screen, almost every single driver except for Delta Hunter, Colin Mason, Gazaman, Alls, and Jamie Matt, that's only 5 out of these 15 drivers that do not have track limits penalties. So the drivers without penalties in this Grand Prix could see themselves doing extremely well. So Gazman, Colin Mason, Delta Hunter could get very, very good results today. But Delta Hunter has a chance to lose this Grand Prix now, because he is going to be under pressure from Colin Mason. And if Colin Mason wins this Grand Prix, there's a small possibility that the championship will still be on, but we'll have to wait and see. Because I think so long as Delta Hunter finishes on the podium, Axel has to either win or finish P2 to keep this championship alive. So I think it's quite unlikely that Axel is going to keep this championship alive, but there is still every single chance. 19-lap old hard compound tyres are going to be very worn, and that is going to put Delta Hunter at a high risk of wheel spin or just any mistakes in general.
Where are your bets going to be placed now? Because we've got the top 4 all mathematically in championship contention, or the top 5 even, because, oh no, Casper's not in championship contention, is he? But it was Speaker who was mathematically in championship contention, although that's all but ended now, so it's down to 4, all running in the top 4 on track, but some of them have time penalties, others do not. So Delta Hunter, he essentially just got to remain within 3 seconds of Axel and Lukey in order to win this race. However, he's going to have all those behind him that have just come in for the soft compound. He's going to be absolutely vulnerable on the restart. He's got to hope maybe the safety car stays out for another lap, but I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. Jordan did come in for a change of tyres at the end of the previous lap, but he's going to catch up to the back of the pack before the safety car goes in. So we are going to be in for a 4-lap shootout. It's anyone's game for the victory. If you are someone that does not have a time penalty, you have every chance of winning this Grand Prix. It could be someone who hasn't won this season yet.
And it could definitely possibly be Gazaman. He's on the soft compounded tyres, and he's only got 1 car between himself and the likes of Colin Mason and Delta Hunter. So Gazaman Could be our surprise winner today. Obviously the P3 tier champion last season. Let's see if he can get a race win in the penultimate round of the season. But before we start talking about race wins, let's talk about this safety car restart. Axok on the medium compounded tire. He's coming down the back straight now, heating up his tires, preparing himself for this safety car restart. He needs to get it perfect if he wants to pull away from the likes of Lukey. And you can see coming onto this pit straight now, waiting and waiting and waiting, leaving it as late as possible. But it looks like the time is now, and Lukey has definitely not got the best safety car restart. Connor Mason, on the other hand, is going to look to that inside line, coming into turn 1, wheels banging between himself and Delta Hunter as he has that outside line for turn number 2. Does he get the better traction on the medium compounded tires? No is the answer. Delta Hunter maintains P3, and Connor Mason is under pressure from the soft runner of Casper, who looks to the outside of turn number 5 and pulls off an absolutely brilliant move there. Casper is up into the top 4, and Gazaman sends it into turn number 6 and 7, and Gazaman gets the better exit. So these soft compound tires just have so much grip because Casper is now overtaking Delta Hunter into turn number 7, and hey, Connor Mason is trying to fight back against Gazaman, and it has worked for now.
Oh,
Connor Mason, and yeah, you can see that is Specialist, who's had a big spin there out of turn number 8. He's hit into the wall and falls all the way to the back of the grid now. Meanwhile, the top 2 holding their positions with Casper on the soft compound tire, trying to put them under pressure as they head down the back straight. Gazaman still on the back of Connor Mason. He's got so much ERS and so much grip to use now as they head into the final chicane. Is he going to get the better exit and try and overtake the Alfa Romeo driver, who has a snap of oversteer out of turn number 14? Gazaman not using his ERS, so he's not going for that move just yet, but he needs to make this move as quickly as possible if he wants to go for this race win. Specialist coming into pit lane, retiring from the session, I think, or possibly going to try and go for a fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Axok still holds the lead, but he is not 3 seconds ahead of Delta Hunter, and if things stay as they are, Delta Hunter will be walking away as a P2 tier champion.
So Delta Hunter knows the situation. The gap between him and Axlock as we speak is 1.9 seconds. He's doing all he needs to do. What he also needs to do is stay within DRS range of the pack. If he does that, he's very much in play to just wrap up the championship here via the time penalties being applied to those ahead of him. So it's now or never really for Delta Hunter as we watch the Aston Martin getting past the Williams. Gazaman up to 6th place now ahead of Waitsy, although Waitsy is fighting back. He is so desperate to get back in front. He needs to because he's got that penalty hanging over him, and he's going to do it before the last chicane. So the Williams driver Waitsy up into P6 as the leaders start the penultimate lap now, as we watch Casper dive into the inside of Lukey, and he goes up what will effectively be 3rd place once the penalties are applied, but Casper is not done here.
He is going to go on an absolute charge now to try and get ahead of the sister team driver of Axlock, currently in P1, and 5/10 is the difference between the top 2. Meanwhile, Delta Hunter just trying to keep it consistent and also keep it ahead of Connor Mason. Gazaman sadly not able to battle it out with those 2 because he was overtaken by Waitsy, who moved himself up into P6. Won't be gaining a position because of that, because obviously his 3-second time penalty is going to drop him right back behind Gazaman, but Gazaman currently outside of the podium range. Meanwhile, Delta Hunter and Connor Mason are well and truly still in this battle, but Delta Hunter is now 2 seconds off of the back of the top 3, so there's every chance that Casper or Axok could win this race, and Casper is looking to that outside line, and he gets the move done before the braking zone. He is up into P1 in this Grand Prix. Can he now extend that 3-second gap to the likes of Delta Hunter by? Meanwhile, Gazaman making the move on that very back straight on the likes of Waitsy. Casper is absolutely flying as he sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. P1 Peru also overtaking Waitsy, and then going super deep into turn 1 there. He's going to have to concede that position to not only Waitsy but J-Luke too, losing 2 positions because of that turn 1. But Delta Hunter, as it stands, if we look at the gap between himself and the leader, it's 3.6 seconds, so Axok still could finish ahead of Delta Hunter, and It's going to be extremely close, but Delta Hunter needs to push extremely hard now if he wants to be ahead of Axlock at the end of this race. He's got to put every ounce of his tyres and his ERS into pushing to the absolute maximum now. Meanwhile, J-Luke gets past Waitsy, and we are now coming to the end of this Grand Prix. Casper is coming down the back straight and looking to possibly win this Grand Prix, and as he head now into the final chicane, is he far enough ahead of Delta Hunter to win this Grand Prix? It looks like it. So as Casper comes down the pit straight, he's going to come across the line to win this Canadian Grand Prix. Axlock is bringing it home in P3 because Delta Hunter has come across the line in P2 and he has come on the podium and he has won the championship here in the P2 tier. Delta Hunter is crowned the One Hub Racing Season 22 P2 tier champion in an absolutely phenomenal performance where the drivers separated by just 3/100ths of a second, but that is the difference between this season's champion and Axlock. 3/100ths of a second. What an end to one of the most exciting races that we've had this season.
Absolutely phenomenal. Just 300ths of a second was the margin after the penalties had been applied. I was going to say Delta Hunter still had about 40% of ERS in store when he came out of turn 10. So I felt he could just do it. And he did it to finish second ahead of Axlock, which has decided the World Championship here. But there's your race winner. It is Casper. His second win of the campaign to go with a victory he picked up at Suzuka in December. And what a performance from him. I mean, he wouldn't have thought that would have happened, to be honest with you. But he's driven beautifully today. A huge recompense from the previous rounds where he wasn't performing as brilliantly. But there is your podium. The two Red Bull drivers are on there, but not one of them is the race winner. It's the AlphaTauri driver, of all people. That is Casper. But the championship is clinched. Red Bull winning both the drivers and the Constructors' Championship after 9 rounds of the season with 1 round still to go. Here's your final race result here in Montreal. Casper wins and gets the fastest lap. Delta Hunter second ahead of Axlock. The championship goes to Delta Hunter. Colin Mason was 4th ahead of Lukey, and Gazaman Waitsy 7th ahead of Ols, Jamie and Luke running out the top 10. Futsal was 11th ahead of Peru, who was 12th. Then it's Kamke Mum, Jordan, and Specialist in 13th, 14th, and 15th. I think Specialist got the point for those outside the top 10 getting the fastest lap. Speakai, Jason, Evil Dragon, and Tristan did not finish the race. So we go on to our driver of the day. Who would be your pick, Mo? Who are you going for?
Oh, there's been so many amazing performances in the grid today. But I do think I have to go, not with the champion here in the P2 tier, but for this race's performance, it has to go to Casper. He went for an amazing strategy, started on that medium compounded tyre, got the perfect 2 safety cars to make it work for him, went to those soft compound tyres for the end of the Grand Prix, got the fastest lap, pulled out ahead of the Red Bull driver of Axlock, and he pulled out at the 3-second gap that he needed to Delta Hunter behind him and finished in first by 0.3 of a second. So my driver of the day has to go to Casper. And my question to him would be, was there any worry that your strategy wasn't going to work out after that first virtual safety car where you decided to stay out on the medium compounded tyre? But yeah, that's definitely the question I would ask to him, because I think that played a big part in his race win today. But Tom, if you had to give one of these drivers a driver of the day, who would you give it to here in Canada?
I'm going to give it to the champion today because that was really intense, those final few laps, because I thought that Delta Hunter could have dropped back horribly after at the end of that, after performing so brilliantly in the opening stints. So my question for Delta Hunter is, it wasn't quite the victory today, but you did all you needed to do to win the championship by finishing, most importantly, ahead of your teammate Axlock. What must have been running through your veins in those last few laps? Because that must have been intense, just as intense as you would see in a real-life Formula 1 race. You are champion. How does it feel? So that would be my question for Delta Hunter. And I was going to give one final mention to our sponsors and partners. We'll begin with Next Level Racing, who sponsored the league by providing its prizes. Pure Sim Gear, who sponsored the league by providing a new product, not launched yet, to the driver with the most podiums. Gamergoo, who sponsored the league, providing its Gamergoo samples to the trophy winners. Esotec SimSports, who sponsored the league by providing a multitude of prizes with different ways to win them. The driver with the most fastest laps win a set of Forte pedals, and the driver with the shortest combined qualifying time wins a set of Forte pedals and boots. On to our partners, Vespa Team, who partner the league with the official apparel, ERT, who support the Go and Get Stuff Award and league trophies, and last but not least, SimGrid, who run the seasons through their community and platforms. So you can find all the race results and standings in each tier of One Hub Racing on the SimGrid website. And what a brilliant way to see the championship decided. Did you think we were going to see a race like what we saw today, More?
I mean, what a way to end off this Season 22 championship in the P2 tier. And I don't think any of us could have predicted what happened there in that race. The strategy always playing a massive part, as it usually does here in One Up Racing. And at the end of the day, I do think it came down to the pace of the drivers as well. Casper had to show that amazing pace at the end of the Grand Prix, and Delta Hunter had to try his best on those hard compound tyres, just about come P2 by 3/100ths of a second. So definitely one of the most exciting ends to a race of the season. I definitely have to give it to Canada. But I hope you all enjoyed this penultimate round of the season and the end of this championship battle between the two Red Bull drivers. But there is one final round in the season finale, which will be next week at 7 o'clock British UK time. And we will be arriving at Silverstone for the round 10 and the final round of this season. Make sure to join us for that final round, and if Canada is anything to go off, I'm sure we're going to have another amazing race, as the P2 tier always seems to produce some great racing action. But that has been all from this P2 tier. I've been your race commentator in More Games alongside Tom Carnes, and I hope to see you all next week for the final time this season